Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar today. It's lovely to have so many of you here with us as we dive into what it means to pivot your marketing strategy during COVID-19. My name is Tara Gosling and I'm the Content Marketing Lead here at Digistorm, and today I'm joined by our very talented Marketing Manager, Heather Benz.
Hi, everybody.
Heather and I are pretty excited for this webinar today because, as you can probably see, it's the first one in many months that we've actually been able to run from inside Digistorm HQ.
Yeah, it's so nice.
It's so nice to be here. Of course, we are maintaining our social distance while we're here, but it's lovely to be back here in person. So today's webinar is going to be broken up into a couple of different parts. First, we're going to take a broader look at the current marketing landscape to understand what areas of marketing have been impacted. And then Heather's going to walk us through some tips and tricks on pivoting our strategy now, and as well looking ahead to the future on what we can start planning for in 2021. But before we get into all that, I'm just going to hand over to Heather to walk through a little bit about Digistorm for any of us here today who might be a little bit new to us. So over to you, Heather.
Thanks, Tara. So I did have a sneak peek at the guest list before we started today, and a lot of you are Digistorm clients, so hello. If you haven't introduced yourself and said hello in the chat, please make sure that you do that. Tell us where you're from. It's great to have you all online at the moment. Okay, but there are some people who've probably logged on today who don't know too much about Digistorm. So here are the things that you'll need to know. So we were founded right here on the Gold Coast. We were founded in Burleigh Heads. There are currently 40 of us. The majority are working from home at the moment, but we do have 2 offices. So one is right here on the Gold Coast in Queensland, and we also recently opened our second office in Denver, Colorado, over in the USA.
That's right.
So we partner with over 500 K-12 schools around the world, and we are proud to be the recognized leaders in software development for schools. And that is what you need to know about Digistorm. Now I'm going to hand you back to Tara. She's going to kick off the webinar by having a look at the current marketing landscape and what's been happening with the main marketing channels that our schools have been using. So over to you, Tara.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Heather. So yes, for those of you who joined our inbound marketing webinar a little earlier this year, it's safe to say that many of the strategies and tactics that were discussed then have undergone some pretty significant changes since that webinar. At the start of the year, the marketing buzzword was personalization, and now it's pivot. So we know that there's a strong sense of uncertainty right now. We're currently facing possibly what's one of the most challenging times, both in our professional and personal lives. I think the word unprecedented has probably been thrown around a lot more in the past few months than ever before, but I mean, we are facing unprecedented times, and many of us are being forced to pivot quickly and switch gears often as well. So I think as marketers, this is very challenging because naturally we're planners. You know, I definitely am, and COVID-19 has certainly thrown our plans out the window, and it's completely disregard that. So this is why now it's more important than ever before to remain agile in our approach to marketing and really learn to identify the opportunities to pivot our strategies when possible. So that's what we're diving all into today. So to kick things off, I would just like to take a quick moment of silence for all the marketing campaigns that were postponed, cancelled, or put on hold this year. I know that many of you would have had grand plans for how you're going to engage and attract your prospective families. But unfortunately, according to Marketing Week, 86% of marketers are now required to delay or review their campaigns this year. It's clear that we're all in the same boat. It's the same for us here at Digistorm as well. We had big plans for running lots of workshops and interstate meetups across the country. But now, we find ourselves having to cancel pretty much our entire events vertical for 2021. So we're definitely right there with you. So across the board, what we are seeing is our marketing campaigns have been disrupted, but also resources have become very limited as well. So for example, many of us might be working with a reduced number of staff members at the moment. We might be waiting on resources due to hiring freezes, or we might just be trying to navigate reduced or even axed budgets. So it's very tricky. Across the board, we've also seen that there's been a drop in new enrollment numbers, a 30% drop in fact. So we know that many families are also feeling that economic impact of the pandemic as well. So it's challenging. I mean, you don't need me to tell you that it's a hard time right now. But despite all of these limitations, marketing teams still need to meet those business objectives. You know, we still need to generate leads and nurture our prospects and find new and engaging opportunities for content. So how do we do that? Well, Heather is going to walk us through in a moment on how to do that. But first, I would just like to take a little bit of a look at 4 key areas of marketing that have probably seen the most amount of change recent times. And we're going to kick that off with some pay-per-click advertising.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so according to Marketing Week, digital ad spend is set to decline for the first time ever, which is set to end a decade of growth. I'm just going to say it, unprecedented.
Yeah, that's
okay?
huge.
That's massive. That's a big change for this space.
Mm-hmm.
So as I just mentioned, marketers are being forced to work with reduced resources and even axed budgets, which means that many schools and businesses are needing to reduce their pay-per-click campaigns or even stop them entirely. And from that, we're actually seeing a 50% drop in the average cost per click.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's a big change for the space. But there is a bit of good news for those of you who are able to continue your campaigns. Even if it's at a reduced capacity, you can still get really great results with less. And there's a couple of ways you can tweak that to do that. So I'll quickly run you through those. First, we recommend adjusting your ad schedule to only show up during your best performing times.
Yep.
So you definitely want to jump into your analytics and find out if it's a specific day or specific time that is really working for you and focus on that. Next, you're wanting to check which devices your conversions are coming through on, so where your ads are being viewed more favorably. Is it mobile? Is it tablet? Is it desktop? Stop the ones that aren't working and focus on the ones that are. And thirdly, yes, you want to review your keywords as well. So again, it's just reducing the spend on keywords that aren't working for you and focusing on the ones that are. It's definitely not a time that you would normally be, might experiment a little bit more, but it's just to focus on the ones that definitely are working for you. So with all those tips in mind, I think that you can still get a lot of your PPC campaigns, and even if it's a reduced budget, you can still get a lot out of it, which is good to see. So next, we're going to move on to social media. Now, when January first rolled around, I, like many other people, had made a resolution to spend a lot less time on my screen and stop wasting so much time on social media.
Yeah, so did I.
You had the same one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that pretty much went straight out the window the moment I ran out of things to watch on Netflix.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's probably the same for a lot of people. And here's what we know. So internet usage has gone up by 70% since the pandemic began.
Wow.
And the amount of time that we're spending on our mobile apps has also gone up by 20%. I mean, that probably doesn't come as a huge shock considering so many of us have been required to stay indoors. It makes a lot of sense. But where are we spending this time? So which apps are getting the most traction right now? So according to our research, it's TikTok, WhatsApp, Facebook, and Instagram that are getting all the downloads this year. Facebook actually recently came out and said that they've seen the most amount of usage on their platform during this time as well. Again, this kind of makes sense that we're all turning to the platforms that are really fostering that sense of connection and that sense of community during a time that can feel quite disconnected and isolated.
For sure.
So we've actually seen a lot of our schools as well doing some amazing things on their social media platforms, sharing videos, sharing photos, and just connecting their communities.
Yeah.
So there's been a ton of organic content being created. That's what we're seeing across the board on social. But what does that mean for paid social? So again, similar to PPC, budgets are being cut. Marketers are required to reduce their spend in this area or even stop it entirely. So again, if you are continuing it, there is still a lot of opportunity in this space to get more out of less. However, I think the thing to remember with social advertising at the moment is that these aren't necessarily the platforms that you want to be sharing overtly salesy content right now. People are definitely turning to these platforms for connection and community and for help and engagement. So sharing that salesy resource might not be the best thing right now. But if you are looking to promote some paid content, focusing on tools and resources that support, engage, and inspire your community would definitely be helpful.
Yeah.
So probably just keep that in mind when you are using paid social during this time. Okay, we're going to turn to events now. Poor events has probably been one of the most hard hit areas throughout this pandemic.
For sure.
It's also a key resource for many marketers for their lead generation. So we're definitely feeling the impact there. In fact, 41% of marketers still say that it's their number one resource for lead generation.
Yeah, wow.
An effective marketing tool that they have.
And we can't do events this year.
And we cannot do events.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure a lot of you as well are feeling that. We certainly are. And it's probably going to take a long time for us to get back to our pre-corona state for events. And there's really still a massive question mark on whether or not we'll actually be able to get back to that stage.
Yep, you're right.
So for many schools, that means a lot of your events like school tours and open days, these events that help get those new enrollments across the line have been impacted, which again is very tricky. So what we have seen so far though is a big digital embrace. So we're seeing a lot of platforms being taken advantage of that help you to take these events online and even potentially scale the numbers where possible. So there's a bunch of platforms out there, especially ones like UTour and 360 Victoria, that really allow families to have these immersive virtual experiences. They can tour the school grounds and facilities without even really needing to step foot on the campus. So of course that's fantastic right now when we can't physically be there. But what we're also starting to see is opportunities opening up for the future as well. So not only does that provide, again, families now the opportunity to see your school, but out-of-town families or interstate and eventually, again, international families can still get that really nice experience with these platforms. So, of course, while we cannot wait to see in-person events get back to their full capacity, there are some great tools out there that are starting to raise in popularity at the moment, which is fantastic.
Sure.
And finally, we're going to talk about content marketing a little bit. So this is a key area that's getting a lot of attention right now. I think when Australia first headed into lockdown, the initial reaction from many marketers was to pause content, just sort of stop sharing what they had planned and just go a little bit quiet there. Understandable. I think initially a lot of people were scared of appearing to be off topic or salesy or just missing the mark, especially during a time that requires so much sensitivity. But what we've started to see, which is fantastic, is rather than just pausing the content, we've seen a lot of marketers start to pivot their content and focus in on topics that will help better support their communities. So again, that's why right now we're seeing a lot of content out there that's related to thought leadership. We're seeing SEO, we're seeing communication, crisis communication, as well as some free resources and upskilling. It's been a lot more supportive, which is fantastic. And I think a lot of brands can also see that, of course, they're being genuinely helpful now, and that's fantastic. But they know that by sharing resources with the community that's helpful, we'll also continue to build that positive brand association well into the future. So it's great to see that the content is still getting out there and it's very supportive. So that's kind of a little bit of a broader look at what the landscape's looking like now and what areas have been most impacted. But now I'm going to hand over to Heather, who's going to walk us through a bit about what we should be focusing on now and well into the future as well.
Oh, thanks, Tara.
No worries.
So this is a little bit of a long intro, so bear with me, but I would like to reiterate a few of the points that Tara made in her section. So if you tuned into our webinar that we ran a fortnight ago, that was run by Mon. She's our customer experience specialist. And one of the big things that she touched on was this question: how can my school be sensitively communicating with current and prospective families? Now, as a school, particularly if you have quite high admissions targets, you'll need to be really keeping those lines of communications open. Now, the challenge is knowing what to say and how much outreach is appropriate. Some schools have expressed that families are still in survival mode. So talking about the next year of enrollments or your school programs, schools are worried that they're going to come across as tone deaf. And now that schools are reopening and things are starting to go back to normal, these questions are more amplified than ever. So we would say just what Tara said when she was talking about content marketing, that your school marketing is a long game. It's never about immediate results, but it's about nurturing and providing consistent value over the long run. Good marketing teams keep the customer at the center of everything they do, and they only try to communicate messages that provide value to their audience. In most cases, this is something that your school's probably already been doing long before COVID-19. So the good news is that what you're doing is just continuing to provide value to them, and that's not going to be seen as insensitive. But what kind of content does put the prospective family's experience first? And what should we be producing and sharing right now? Now, Tara's touched on how your old marketing strategy likely went straight out the window as soon as COVID hit. Your team had to be prepared to quickly change your messaging and be ready to adapt what you were doing as the goalposts continued to move. It was a really reactive period. And now we're in a stage where things are starting to balance out. So what I would first recommend is you start with your existing plan that you wrote at the very beginning of the year. So as marketers, we sit down and we think, we plot out our events, we plot out all of the content we're going to be producing, and we map out our year. When we did that in probably or the end of last year or January of this year, everything looks so different. I think, I wrote mine that first week back, and we haven't been able to follow a lot of it. So obviously you're going to have to do a very thorough assessment of your marketing plan for tone and appropriateness. And obviously there's going to be a lot of things that don't work now. But anything that doesn't align, you can eliminate that from your marketing strategy straight up. However, there might be a lot of things that you had planned that can likely go ahead. Or there might be some things that you can adjust and rework to fit in with your current strategy. So that's a really great place to start, rather than starting from scratch, maybe working from something that you already have. Second, I'd be encouraging you to be really investing in content that amplifies your school brand. Now, it might feel weird to be talking about your school brand right now. So instead, we'd encourage you to let your brand advocates talk for you. Their stories speak volumes about things like your school values, your ethos, and your purpose. So we've seen a lot of schools doing this, sharing great brand stories on their socials over the past few months. So this would be things like student stories. So we've seen a lot of social posts about students and how well they've adapted to working from home, and then how well they've transitioned to being back in the classroom. This says a lot about your school because you were the ones that facilitated that. Teachers' stories, one thing that I thought was really cool that we've seen a lot of schools do is they talk about how much the teachers missed the kids being in the classroom, and then how happy they were when they came back. So again, that really says a lot about your school brand when you post stories like that. Alumni stories, so past students who really espouse your brand, just telling your school where they are now, talking about their achievements, and hopefully how your school got them there. And then one that I think is really powerful myself is stories and messages from your school leaders, and in particular your principal. So that's offering support and encouragement to your community. And what I like is that a lot of schools have really kept those principal messages coming even as things have started to return to normal. These messages, what they do is they tell a great story about the leadership at your school. So brand content, if you're looking at creating new things, that's where I would start. Next, I'd be encouraging you to be considering the type of informational content you produce. So informational content, this is content that explores the thoughts, emotions, and challenges that your audience might be feeling right now. It addresses pain points, even really small ones. Maybe they might be seen as insignificant, but what that does is it provides a lot of value to the people who are reading it. So we've seen great examples from different school blogs that provided parents with the information they needed to support their children learning remotely, and then again, transitioning them back into the classroom. And we've also seen some really excellent examples of content that's designed to help ease parents into the new normal and help them to support their children to adjust to things not being quite the way they were before. Finally, and this is something that our marketing team has been working a lot on as well, you can draw on your evergreen content. So evergreen content is content that you created maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, that is still relevant and it's something that you can continue to use for years into the future. So one thing we've been hearing about and even experiencing ourselves as a team is a real lack of creativity. And I was thinking about why that might be. It's something that probably everyone in our team's been feeling lately.
Definitely.
And I think it's because we all had to be so creative in our jobs when COVID first hit. Everything changed. We had to work from home. We had to kind of scrap everything we'd planned and redo it. And as well, we've also had to be really creative in our personal lives as well, while things continue to change. So when it comes to marketing, I think there's this general lethargy going around, and I think there's really good reasons for it. So when you're feeling like that, it can be really hard to think of new ideas and to be producing brand new content. So now is the perfect time to be going back through your archives and finding content that you created at a different time, and maybe repurposing that older content into a new format, or even just giving it a dust off, bringing it into 2020 and then resharing it. And you don't even have to be super creative with how you find these little gems of content. Your analytics are a great place to start. So you can have a look through your analytics. You can see which posts are still getting clicks, which ones people are still interacting with, and which ones are still relevant, and then use those. So those are 4 different types of content that I'd be really encouraging schools to invest in over the next few months. Now let's talk about the rest of 2020 and then looking forward into 2021. So here are some things that your school can also be focusing on, because as Tara said, things have changed a lot.
Yes.
So the first thing I'd really encourage you to look at would be your CRM. It's so important. So your CRM is your customer relationship manager. If your school doesn't have one, it holds all of the information about prospective families at your school. If you don't have a CRM, something that you also might have would be an email subscriber list. So all of the list of users who you might be sending marketing emails out from your school. So we'd encourage you to start there and clean up your data. Dirty data is a problem for marketers, us included. Marketers, we should be basing a lot of our decisions and our marketing strategy on information that we have about our customers, who they are, what they're interested in, their demographics, and all of that. If your CRM contains a bunch of inaccurate data, then we would be building our strategies on inaccurate information. So now more than ever is the perfect time to be looking at your email subscribers or your CRM leads and updating any incorrect information. So that would be deleting duplicate records, making sure all the contact details are in there, or even reaching out to those prospective families and getting the right information if it's not in there. The second thing that you can be focusing on for the rest of the year and going into 2021 would be upskilling. So upskilling is diversifying your skill set. So becoming a marketing all-rounder rather than specializing in one particular thing. I guess there's a real pressure at the moment. I think Tara touched on this at the beginning of the webinar, to do a lot more with fewer resources. Upskilling is one way that you can provide more value to your team. So speaking from our team, we have all been learning different disciplines due to the pandemic. So our events coordinator, Lucy, so she's the one who's actually organized this webinar today. At the beginning of the year, or in March, we had to cancel all of our events, and it removed the bulk of her workload for 2020. So Lucy had to quickly pivot her skill set, and now you might have noticed her writing posts about things like events or social media or email marketing on the Digistorm blog. These are all things that she knows a lot about and that she's good at, so it's been great to get her expertise up on our blog. She's also been working on SEM. So as Tara mentioned, pay-per-click advertising is a huge opportunity at the moment, and one that we've definitely jumped on at Digistorm. So Lucy's now managing all of our SEM channels, which has been great to have in our team. Isaac, our videographer, suddenly he didn't have subjects to video as he couldn't leave his house. So again, he had to pivot to writing-based marketing and producing videos a little differently than he was used to. Again, he's been contributing to blog posts and guides and providing his expertise to clients in a different way. And I think the experience, it's been really positive. It's definitely been positive for us. Hey, Tara.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think it's also been a really good learning experience for them. They can see how all of the different parts of marketing work together, and they've also been able to develop skills that support their specialty. So Isaac's being video marketing and Lucy's being events. If you're looking to upskill, we have a series on our blog with a range of different marketing disciplines and how you can learn them. And these are all usually very high quality courses that are currently being offered at a very low cost. And in most cases, they're actually free. So I'd encourage you to check that out. We'll be sending you some links to those after the webinar. The final thing I'd be really encouraging you to focus on this year would be your website. So one thing that we've noticed is that a lot of schools took this opportunity to start working on their websites when they, in their marketing strategy during COVID. So your webinar is such an important piece of your marketing strategy. It's probably the most important piece, but now more than ever. If your website doesn't reflect your school as it looks right now, maybe look at redeveloping it. And I'm saying that because Digistorm is in a similar process at the moment.
Yeah, we are.
We developed our website 3 years ago, and since then, so much has changed, wouldn't you say?
A lot's changed.
Yeah, the personality of the company is so different. Our company at the time had about 15 employees, and now we have over 40, and I think we're even nearing 50. So we've been taking some time to redevelop our site as well.
We're very excited for you guys to see that eventually.
Yes. Yeah, it'll be good. It's such a big project.
It's been a huge project, but yeah, it's well worth the wait.
Yeah, for sure. Related to that, SEO, search engine optimization, that is so important and now more than ever. Schools need to be found online. That's where your audience is, especially during COVID. That's where your audience has been. So hopefully this year and into 2021, we start to see a big focus of schools taking their SEO seriously. Now, this isn't a webinar about SEO, although maybe that would be something you'd be interested in. If so, let us know in the comments. But anyway, some SEO basics that you could be working on. The first thing I would say would be to ensure your website is set up correctly from a technical perspective. That's something that Digistorm can help you with. And also doing proactive SEO optimization. So that would be doing things like writing blog posts that boost your content. We have a lot of resources on the Digistorm blog about SEO. And as I mentioned, if you are interested, we could also run a webinar about it as well. All right. Let's sum this planned part of the webinar up by just talking about the biggest learning that I've had. Tara's touched on it as well, and that would be remaining agile. So some marketing teams, your marketing team may have already been really good at this. For me and for Tara as well, we are planners when it comes to our work. I mean, I like to have things scheduled at least 3 months in advance, and I, as I mentioned, have my whole year mapped out usually with all my events, all my marketing campaigns, all kind of set in stone.
Yeah, this year's been a challenge for that.
It has. 2020 has taken that away from me. So for the past few months, well, definitely when COVID hit, we were taking everything day to day. As the goalposts continued to shift, we'd be thinking, what kind of information do our schools need? What can we kind of produce and put out really quickly? It was, like I said before, it was super reactive. Now I think we're at the stage where we're taking everything week to week and we're starting to plan things a little bit in advance. But for me personally, I'm going to try and take some of the things I've learned about being agile, responding to changes and new challenges, and really listening to clients and trying to come up with content that meets them where they're at. And I'm going to apply that to my work, probably for the rest of my life. So that's probably my big takeaway from COVID as a marketer. All right, so that is the end of the planned part of our webinar. So in just a couple of minutes, we'll be answering some of your questions that you put in the chat. So if you do have any other questions, please feel free to pop that in there. Lucy, our events coordinator, is moderating at the moment. She'll be able to shoot them over to Tara and I. And while you do that, we'd like to just talk about a few resources that we have available. So that should be up on the slide here. We will be sending you some links after the webinar concludes with a link to this webinar if you want to watch it again. And we also do have 2 more webinars coming up in the next few weeks.
Yeah, we have a couple more planned.
Yes, we do, and we'd really encourage you to register for those. So we've got the first one that's happening in a fortnight is a Q&A.
Yes, with Chris and Monica. We'll be answering all of your questions. So any questions that you might have, they're going to be diving into it, which would be fantastic.
Yeah, so if you have questions about your enrollment strategy or marketing, yeah, please feel free to send them through to us, and we'll be doing sort of a live Q&A.
Yes.
Which will be good.
Then Chris will be talking a little bit about thought leadership in the education industry as well. And what date was that one on, Heather?
That one's in mid-July. I think it might be the 21st.
Yes.
So we are taking a bit of a break for the school holidays, but then a couple of weeks after that we'll be back.
straight back into it. And
Yeah.
thankfully, we still have webinars as our events, which
Yes.
is fantastic. At least we can still connect with you in this way.
Yes, agreed.
Until we can get our events back on track.
Yes, for sure. All right, so we might have a look and see if we've got any questions. If you are logging off for the morning, I'd like to say thank you so much for joining us, and please don't forget to hit that subscribe button before you go.
Absolutely, yeah. We share a lot of great resources on our Digistorm YouTube channel. We put out videos weekly, lots of marketing tips and tricks, as well as upskilling videos. So we'd love to have you on there as part of our community as well. Sorry, do we have any questions coming through there?
We do have one question. Lucy's just sending it through at the moment. This one's from Freshwater Christian College.
Hello.
And they've asked, where would you be investing our marketing budget right now? That is such a good question.
That is a good question.
Yeah.
Actually, I think they might have been reading our mind a little bit. We do have a resource coming out about that shortly, don't we, Heather?
Yeah, we do actually.
Yeah.
So to give you a basic summary of this resource that I wrote, that we've got coming out, especially because we've got end of financial year approaching. Yes. A lot of school marketing teams will be thinking, how much of a budget do I need? And then where should it be going? So basically in that post, we talked about it's got to come back to your marketing goals, which should definitely flow from your school business plan.
Yes.
So what's your school business plan trying to achieve? And then what are the marketing channels that will actually work towards those school business goals? So one big marketing goal for this year will probably be around boosting enrollment numbers. So then you'll be probably wanting to do some advertising. Where are your customers at the moment? Where are your prospective families, I should say? What kind of channels do they use? And that's where you should be advertising, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And as sort of you mentioned there, Heather, really looking at your online presence and seeing if you can use some of your budget to improve that, whether that's your website, whether that is paid advertising, whether that's looking into virtual tours, whatever you can do to boost that digital presence, because that is what's most important right now.
For sure.
And into the future as well.
Yeah, for sure. And in this post that we have coming out, I'm not sure, it should be coming out really soon. And if you are subscribed to our newsletters, it'll be sent to you.
You'll be the first to know.
Yeah, you'll be the first to know. We do break down how to work out the return on investment from your different channels, because as marketers, it can be hard to sort of tie the amount of money that we spend in a particular channel to results, and then tying that again to like a money figure that we've made for the school, especially when one of your marketing goals might be something a little more abstract, such as brand awareness.
Yes, that's tricky to measure.
Yeah, so please keep an eye out in your inbox for that resource that'll be coming through.
Great.
All right, we do have another question. So this one's, what are some example of sensitive marketing when we're trying to get prospective families to enroll? That's a really good question.
That's a good question.
This would be actually a really good one to write a blog post about.
I think so too, yeah.
Yeah. So something that we're really passionate here at Digistorm about, and we write a lot of resources about, is inbound marketing, which is that marketing that puts customers at the center of everything that you're doing. So it's thinking about what kind of challenges would prospective families be encountering if they are looking to enroll at a school like ours, and then how can we address those challenges through our marketing.
Yeah, and some of those, as you mentioned, each school will know that they have different pain points when it comes to getting those enrollments over the line, and writing content that it might help address that, whether that's from a financial point of view or diving into what your prospective families are going through right now as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the important things to be doing as marketers is to always be sort of listening and seeking feedback from our clients, and then also working really closely with your enrollments team as well.
Yeah, and see if there are any patterns or themes that are popping up, because they would be the best people who will know, and then you can shape content around that to help those pain points.
If you're a school and you've been seeing some real success in this area, we'd love to hear from you, because we will be turning this question into a resource. I think it's a really important one.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, that looks like that's all the questions that we have for now. If you have any further questions, please feel free to write them in the comments of the YouTube video. You can also reach us. We're marketing@digistorm.com. That's our email address. And other than that, hang tight. We'll be sending you this webinar recording and those resources that we mentioned in your email later on today.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's all from us for now.
I think it is.
So thank you again so much for joining us. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and we will see you at the next Digistorm webinar. Have a fantastic day. See you later.
Bye.